Why have I quit my job? Why have I, bought a van? And why am I going to drive around the country? Well, I'm passionate about the idea that you need to be heard. And I want to stitch these stories together across the states. We're going to find the commonalities. And it's going to be really an amazing experience. And I look forward to you joining me on the jar. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Mental Health Today. It's your host, Ken Stearns, and a beautiful day here in Las Vegas. It's my little video there, the introduction. That's actually really now, it's almost 2 years ago that audio was done, where I was kind of trying to pontificating there in that overdub about what I would find, what I would see on the journey across the U.S. And as I've said on the podcast before, mental health was really top of the order. And it seems so many of the conversations involved people's journeys with mental health from either friends or family themselves, and just the struggle to get treatment, the struggle to pick up, some of the personal crises that I saw. Like the hardest part I saw was the struggle during some traumas that people went through, and the struggle to find resources or to not be alone, even amongst a sea of other people going through the same thing or similar, just still feeling alone. And then ultimately how people pick up the pieces when everything goes quiet, when the machines go away, when everything else happens, when the firefighters go away, funerals are over, trauma's over. You're sitting with yourself, and what is that like? And so it's been one of the great stories is how amazing and strong humans are. Holly's no stranger to those kind of tough moments. We were laughing, we were having a little giggle before because Holly didn't know she was going to be live on video, which we are. And she's like a small panic attack, realizing hadn't even looked in the mirror since about 9 a.m. And, but hey, you've been through tougher stuff. As we giggled.
Yes.
Holly, welcome to the show. Thanks for being a guest.
Well, thank you, Ken. Greatly appreciate the opportunity and all you do.
Yeah. Thanks. And thanks for, thanks for coming on and being so vulnerable. I think, there's some tough, I think sharing personal journeys is pretty tough, and sharing, personal journeys like yours even harder. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, who you are today and maybe we'll start here and we'll kind of peel back. What are you doing today?
So I've been in the nonprofit sector for all of my professional career, and working with people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. About 4.5 years ago, I had a life-changing event that kind of threw me actually from one path onto another path that was completely foreign to me. So my son served our country for 9 years in the 82nd Airborne. He came home in 2018 after 9 years and started civilian life. And in 6 months, out of the blue, he was sick. We went to the hospital, and he had a brain tumor, and he fought courageously but lost his life in 126 days. So that whole devastating, life-changing event kind of produced a very raw and emotional book that my first-time author, to be honest, I didn't even read books back until and now I wrote a book. So I'm a first-time author, and somebody who did not like books, and I wrote one, and I published it, and it took me 3 long years, but it's all about the journey of my son, and also how terrible brain cancer is, glioblastoma and other brain cancers, and how grief is not respected in society. So, yeah.
Grief is not respect. Yeah, we are not really. I interviewed. I sat down with a death doula recently on the jar, and we talked about how death used, what death used to be. And one of her experiences was she lost her son. And she said the thing that was terrible at the end, when she, like, the instant reflection was everything happened and they took him away. She lost control of the body instantly.
Yes.
And that was it. And everything after that was super technical. And there was no chance to say goodbye.
Yes. That's
It was this
exactly.
very weird, clinical, kind of very cut, okay, boom, this is now, well, this is what happens, and these people take over, then these people. And she said they came in the room and they swooped up and he was gone, and that was it. And then I saw him in the morgue. And then I saw him in the funeral home, and like when you were allowed to see, and she was describing what it used to be like, and way, way more holistic.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. We were by his side every day in the hospital, and certainly had a slew of incredible doctors and nurses
mhm.
and everything. But um, glioblastoma, for people that aren't familiar with this brain cancer, it's the most common, most aggressive, and least treatment resistant brain tumor, and it's the leading cause. Brain tumors are the leading cause of cancer related deaths in children and adolescents and young adults ages 15 to 39. And so, despite all of
Hmm.
these statistics that there's a million people living with a brain tumor today, we have come so very far in combating cancer over the last 40, 50 years, and have done a
Yes.
remarkable job at doing so, where there's so many options for treatments on so many cancers that used to be just a death sentence, so to speak.
Okay.
And a lot of funding has been given to those cancers, and it's done wonderful. Unfortunately, brain cancer, because it's only 3 or 4% of the population, it has not received the funding,
Um,
and so we have been left with 4 FDA approved drugs, which are sometimes more harsh than the tumor itself. And
yeah.
we have underfunded this disease drastically. And we have incredible
Hmm.
medical researchers and everybody trying to do what they can, but we absolutely need the funding that we have not received over the last 30 years. That is way
Ah.
overdue, because my son had one treatment. That was it, radiation. That's it. Strapped down to a board every day for 5 days, 5 days a week, 40 minutes a day for 6 weeks, and get radiation shot through his brain and his spine. That was the
Oh,
only treatment other than the surgery to remove the tumor. So
I
when you
mean,
think about how barbaric that is, and
that's
yeah,
that's the word, barbaric. And when you're
yeah,
describing it, like,
yeah,
that's not that far away from,
yes.
lobotomies.
Yes. Yes. I mean, and when I say strapped down, of course, we have professionals there and all that, but the bottom line is you're strapped down and you're going through
You're
this
still
tube,
at the end, you're
and
still, no matter
yeah,
how polite they are, you're still being
yeah,
strapped down.
medicated you are, and that was the only option that my son had. And that's totally
Hmm.
unacceptable.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
it rages in within me, and so many other people that I've met on this journey that have watched their husbands, wives, and sisters, brothers. My
mm,
wonderful daughter had to watch her brother and only sibling go through this.
yeah,
It's so traumatic, and it's so unfair. And so my advocacy work has, I've pivoted from my CEO hat to advocacy work, and that's where I'm going to remain. That's my purpose. My pain has purpose,
yeah,
and my purpose is now to not only try to move the needle forward in a fight for a cure for this horrible disease, but also to bring the attention of mental health and grief that happens when you lose somebody so important in
mm.
your life. And so I talk about grief a lot too.
Yeah, well, that's the mission, right? I mean, the cancer part, you can raise money, but you can't do much more than that, right? You can't cure it. You're not a doctor, you're not the researcher, you can find the money.
Yeah,
Um, but helping other people, other moms, other dads, other kids, siblings.
yeah,
Um, what was, before the grief comes, I mean, you've got the diagnosis and everything else. This is, like you said, it's largely a death sentence. Um, and then it's a matter of the grace. Hopefully you make it a miracle, through the radiation. Um, but how do the doctors, or how does the system prepare you for that? Is there any? This should be something. I mean, seemingly this should be kind of a hand in glove kind of
Yeah.
approach, right? You've got to treat the person, the family. You have to treat also you've got to treat let's say our minds, our ability to manage what's going to happen and what you're going to go through.
Yeah, that's all great points. And it depends on where you are and what you have access to, right?
Okay. Yeah,
So,
for sure.
yeah,
For sure.
yeah. So Derek serving 9 years in the Army with insurance. We're 30 minutes from the
Mm,
Preston Robert Tisch Brain Tumor Center here at Duke in Durham, North Carolina. So we have the best of the best and insurance. But depending on where people are, we don't have hospitals that have these incredible doctors, neurologists, oncologists, that neurology that
mm,
specialize in brain tumors. And so people are either their insurance, they don't have the insurance for it, or they don't
mhm.
have the means to do it to get to travel from one state to
Oh,
another
yeah.
to get the treatments because when you are diagnosed with brain tumor, I mean it takes yourself out of you. Most times people lose their bodily functions, their ability to communicate, their ability to walk, talk, and you have to have a caregiver. The family falls apart. It's just so many one story after another, and it comes so fast. It's just like overnight. One minute you're fine, and the next minute
That's
you're thrown
yeah.
onto this cat, and you don't have time to think about it. You can't think because it's in your brain. So you're not planning, you're not going home and say, oh, yeah, I've got this cancer, and what are we going to do? And, I think I'm going to take that trip, or I'm going to, plan this, or yes, let's go with this treatment. Or that you don't have that time because it's in
Interesting.
your
Yeah.
it's in your brain, and it's ultimately, if it's glioblastoma, the median survival rate is 8 months from diagnosis to death. I mean, for a long-term survivor of 5 years, it's like 6.9%. So, when you have
Oof.
it, it goes fast like a freight train, and it's just so like it's something that you just can't fully explain it. In my book, I explain it very good.
Yeah, we
126
have
days. Yeah,
to.
the unthinkable journey. So I explain a lot in that book about that, what happens and all of that in our story, and of course, um, resources for people that find themselves on this unthinkable journey. So
Yeah, how about the mental health side? Do they have any resource, like, for family members, especially like yourself? You've got a mother, maybe you got a mother or father, brothers and sisters, people coming. What kind of
yeah.
advice or help? Do they have anybody come by? I mean, it used to be the chaplain. At least we had a chaplain coming by. You
Well,
got anybody over there?
yeah,
What does that look like?
yeah, well, it looks different, but it's a very lonely place to be. Um, when something like this happens, people don't know what to say, and they don't know
Yes.
how to help. I have a chapter in my book that specifically says what you should and should not say. But I think the bigger piece is that we all grieve individually, and so we all have a
Mm,
different path that we choose to take. For me, and I can talk, personally for me, um, I had to get myself to a grief expert, a grief counselor. And for people that um, maybe cannot afford that or don't have the insurance,
right.
there's wonderful hospice centers in people's areas that offer free counseling, and that's part of their mission. All
Mm,
of that. There's the Compassionate Friends. They have um, groups around the world where you can find free support groups for parents that have lost children. You can find local support groups. I found a grief counselor who had 40 years experience in this field. Thank God, because I
wow.
had everything I had, from the trauma of watching that all happen to my son, and to my daughter, and to, my husband, and just the aftermath of it all. Everybody goes
Right.
back to work, as the life goes on, and you are just, I'm laying in the bed figuring, how am I going to get out of this bed, and how am I going to live, with a broken heart. People die of a broken heart, and I understand that. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So through a lot of support from my husband and friends, I was able to finally crawl out of the barrel and find myself a grief counselor who I still see 4.5 years later. Mitzi, God love her, she's my life preserver, and she helped me through a lot of the PTSD and things like that
Mm.
that come with the trauma of experiencing something like that. So, and you know what? I haven't cried in such a long time. So I apologize.
That's okay. Well, yeah, no need to apologize. I think that's pretty normal human. I think it's a normal human reaction.
Yeah, but I
Yeah, I mean,
just
you got me even a bit tight chest. Um, I yeah, because like there is, and I don't know if people really can appreciate this. Just I'm imagining the PTSD is real because you are seeing just the treatment and then the body, a Marine, right? I'm the soldier
yeah.
wasting away. That is a mother. How do
Yeah.
you get your head around that?
Yeah, I mean, he was jumping out of airplanes, and 6 months later, he's in a hospital in diapers, and he can't move, and he's got a feeding tube and trying to get
Whew.
through the radiation, and yeah, and you watch him go from this strong soldier to skin and bones, and then there I was taking him to hospice in the back of the ambulance
Hmm.
where I watched him take his last breath 7 days later. So, I mean, this is a cruel, cruel disease, and it's a terrible one. But back to, dealing with the grief,
Mm-hmm.
that is something that's really hard as a CEO for nonprofits, and I think nonprofits, we're able to wrap our arms around people a little bit better than maybe corporate
Yes.
America. But still, I look at all of the policies where I've ever worked, including my own policies, and 3, 4 days bereavement. I'm like, are you serious? Three, four, are you serious? And people do this all throughout the country. They have to get their ass back out into the world to get a paycheck so they can pay their insurance or put food on the table, and they are completely annihilated. And yet we don't have these types of benefits for people, grievers, like us grievers, that have really suffered just the unbelievable loss of somebody they love. For myself, my son, and I tried to go back to work, but I was not the 110% I needed to be every day, because
Yeah.
I was broken. And so I was fortunate. I was able to step away and take time for myself and my daughter and my family. But so many people don't have that opportunity. And so I think that grief, and when I
Sure.
say that doesn't get respect in society, I think people need to go back and look at their policies and see how they can really support their employees, that when something like this happens and they lose that someone that they
Hmm.
love so much, that they need more than 3 days.
That is, I'm just even seeing those like the words in the policy books I've seen, right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
I'm just visualizing that part of the policy, and yeah, and it's there. It is black and white,
Yeah. Yeah.
three
Yeah,
to four
that's
days.
yeah, 3 to 4 days, and then you just gotta, you know,
Well,
get
you're
your ass
fine.
back
You're
in
back.
here and start.
Back to
Yeah,
everything's back
yeah,
to normal, right?
yeah, yeah. So I think, that's part of it. And another part of the grief is, I heard this and it's discussed in one of my support groups that I went to early on, where someone was explaining that they felt like they were in this invisible wheelchair and they're propelling themselves through life, and nobody sees them in this wheelchair. They don't open the door, they don't smile and help you through or anything like that, because they don't see it. People don't see.
See the grief.
They don't
Yeah.
see the grief. It's invisible, and
Huh.
it can be deadly. And so, I kind of feel like that. I feel uh, like nothing is like simple anymore. And what I mean by that, and I don't, because there are moments of joy that I have now that 4.5 years ago I thought I would never feel. I would never
Mm.
crank up that song on the radio ever again and sing. Or I would 4.5 years ago, I would not think that I could do that. um
Hmm.
and I feel that, I feel like I'm able to, um, express myself more and talk more about Derek, although people shy away from that because they don't want to get
Yeah.
me upset. They don't want me to cry. But when you don't talk about your loved one, it's kind of like you're just dismissing them altogether. So I encourage people to talk about Derek when they're with me, and to say his name out loud. um I just, I think those are important. But when I go back to the nothing is simple, what I mean by that is the holidays come, the seasons are changing, the calendar changing, and it's another reminder that Derek's not here. He's not with me. And so, but I see weddings, and I'm very happy to go to a wedding and seeing people happy. And then I'm sad because they're
Hmm.
getting married, and Derek, I'll never see him get married. They're having children. I will never see that little boy's, his eyes in a little girl or boy. I'll never see that. There's birthdays, they're great birthdays, and I'm happy to celebrate birthdays, and then I'm sad because I'm not celebrating my son's birthday. So it's this it's this love
Hmm.
and grief, joy and sadness. And it's it's
Interesting.
I'm not an expert, but that's for me. That's how it is. And working with my grief counselor for a long 4.5 years, have come to try to
Yeah.
you know
I mean, really breaks it down quite well. Like you said, you see a wedding and you're happy, and then you're like, oh yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and it's really, and it's exhausting sometimes. Um, but I move forward. I try to just stay in the moment. But I have my moments. Like today, I just spent all day
Hmm.
yesterday with the National Brain Tumor Society talking with our Congress about needing more medical research funding for brain cancer. Right? I spent talked to four different, told my story, did not cry one time. Did not even come close to crying one time.
Yeah, it's bit. You're chasing the money. It's business.
Yeah, yeah, I guess, but, yeah, so, but, I have my moments, and
Yeah.
I have to be okay, like, with that. I went to a Hallmark store. I guess I put that in my book. Maybe it's my next book, but I went to a Hallmark store to buy a card for somebody, and there was, "Happy birthday, son," and I lost it, and I just threw down the card and walked out. It happens. I've left food in the grocery store. My son was, he loved
So
candy,
funny.
at 27 years old. I mean, he loved candy, any kind of candy, Skittles, I mean, Reese's cup, you name it. I mean, every kind of candy, he loved candy. And I'd go down the aisle and see the candy, and I'd just have a meltdown, and I'd have to leave. It just happens. He loved Halloween. Halloween's coming up. I mean, the kid decorated his car. Um, with a big black spider on there, and
Oh
and
yeah,
put
he is a
lights on it.
goofball.
He loved, I mean, he just loved life. And um, yeah, so these triggers, these happenings that come, um, I have to remind people sometimes because, although it's 4.5 years, people, move on, but um, I move forward, but never move on. Just move forward.
Yeah, I don't. That's part of your. I mean, that's part of your life. Can't erase that. And like you said, it lives on, and you get reminded of it every day.
Yeah,
like all day. Yeah, I'm sure
all
all
day.
day. There's memories.
There's yes,
Um, yeah, and
yes,
so there's no hiding from that.
no hiding.
Right? Yeah,
Right.
you can't hide from it. You can't bury it. You've got to embrace it.
Yeah.
I think what you're doing with the charity is great. To try to raise more money to try to be part of the solution and
Yes.
not wallow in the what's me, the why me. Um,
Yeah. I went
I
through
mean,
the why me.
there's I'm sure you
Yeah.
swam in that pool. I would swim in that pool. That's a nice pool. I'd want to swim in that. That's a comfort pool, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But eventually you got to get out of that water.
You're right, and putting my pain to purpose, and Angels Among Us
Yeah,
is with the Duke, Preston Robert Tisch Brain Tumor Center, and they raise several $1 million a year. All of their funding goes right to medical research to produce clinical
love it.
trials and treatments. So all of it goes there, and so we have a team. It's D-Rex Defenders. You can walk, you can run.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and D-Rex, it came from Derek's music name. Derek was a self-taught musician, and he was
Oh,
going to take his $30,000 GI Bill and go to college in Atlanta to further develop his music skills, and that was his love. And so that's how we became D-Rex Defenders. So
so people can Google that D-Rex
Defender.
D-Rex Defenders
Yes,
and
yes.
find out more. Okay, because
Yeah.
we've got the website up for the nonprofit. But you can also just Google D-Rex REX Defenders.
Yes.
Very cool. Yeah. Um, yeah, you can't wallow in it. You've got to put some purpose behind it, which seems like what you're doing now. What's next for you? Is this you're more of the active, not say activist stuff, but really pushing more? Are you kind of finding this is a weird thing, Holly. Everybody's experience somehow is what's part of the crisis response, or like how do you purpose it, right? So you're a badass CEO, you got all this nonprofit experience, and now you've got a super driven passion.
Yeah.
You're a dangerous person. You're a dangerous animal. Where are you gonna where are you gonna be pointed? So I'm not in that general direction. You
That's
know what I
fun.
mean? What's next for you?
Yeah, well, my uh, I was going to start my own nonprofit. So I kind of
Okay.
pivoted from full-time work to consulting work, so I
Yeah.
could focus more time and work with an executive coach. And 6 weeks into that, I said, no, I'm
Okay.
not going to do a nonprofit. And the reason for that is because I know what goes into
You
nonprofits.
go,
And
yeah, it's
yeah, and you
don't,
have
yeah,
to
don't do
yeah,
that.
you have to build the plane, fuel the plane, fly the plane, and then you have to have a succession plan and all that other stuff, right? And I'm almost 61 years old, so I'm like, I need to, and I think for me, in my stage of my grief, in my stage where I am now, is
Yes.
that I can
Yeah.
take those skills, those leadership skills and other
Yes.
skills that I have, along with my
Yes.
my attitude of I want to kill brain cancer, and
Yeah.
lobby at this, local, state, and federal levels, try to change policy, try to remove barriers, try to get more clinical trials and treatments funding for those things to give people real hope instead of a death
Hmm.
sentence. Those are the things where I feel like I feel like I will spend my time better doing those
Yes.
sorts of things and advocating with the National Brain Tumor Society and the American Brain Tumor Association. Yeah.
Yeah. My observation is I do think it's a beautiful thing, but it is kind of reactionary when people do create a foundation right away from a loss. um, because there are a lot of other nonprofits that probably exist that can do something close to it, and you can do something in somebody's name,
Yes.
and it's build the plane, fly the plane, repair the plane, buy the plane. You know, that is a full time. It's not even a full time job. It's a many person full time job, and the first $200,000 you make is going to go towards stuff and not really towards what you want it to go towards. I think you did the right thing.
Oh, well, thanks. I know that, for some people, especially, I think if I was 20 years younger, I would have took it on like, yeah, and had a
Different,
yeah, total different. Yes, and
different.
you're right. You're so right, because there are other foundations that I found that I support, where the money goes right to Duke, to their brain tumor center,
Perfect.
for medical. Yeah, so I'm supporting them. I'm working, with them, and trying to just find my way. I'm still on this
Hmm.
unthinkable journey, and I'm still. I think I'll be forever finding my way. Um, but I do know that, I'm in a whole different place than I was 4.5 years ago, where, I didn't know how I was going to survive. I really didn't.
Hmm.
And so here I am, and, yesterday talking to Congress about about billions of
We
dollars
hope.
in money we need. So
Yeah, I mean, like, just whatever shakes out of that big bag that they're, schlepping over there to Ukraine, can you just a couple dollars fall out? Like, I mean,
yeah,
just take some of those trillion, like, I don't know, it's almost $1 trillion we've sent over there now.
yeah,
Can we
a
just
lot.
couple bucks left? Is there something that shakes out of the bottom? There must be a lot of shake at the bottom of that bag.
Yeah,
Um,
I really do hope that, we can get more funding, because it's
yeah,
absolutely necessary.
it is, and I think you're in your wheelhouse. Like I said, you got all that experience as a CEO. You've been on the nonprofit side. You understand a lot of how things work. Um, yeah, you're in the right space. Just I had like an epiphany, or I don't know, not an epiphany, but I had a thought. Uh, it's time for a new season. You got to close your other season
Yep.
of Unthinkable Journey. It's a unless your next book is going to be some play on those words, but it's the pain to purpose thing.
Yes.
You've got you're in the pain space is what your book is the description is the pain part.
Mhm.
So you either need a new book or change your season.
I love it. Well, my next book would not be like my first book, that's for sure. But
Oh, for sure it's going to be, but I mean, you got to start working on that now, which is,
yeah,
so I went through this incredible, like this journey. Now with the next book is, what have I done with that? What did I learn? You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like you
yeah,
got to have
I do.
the yin, you have to have the yang to the yin.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there you go. I like
Yeah.
that. I'm gonna remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta change my
Yeah.
seasons.
You're in that spot now. You're in the
I am.
spot. It's time to change your season into, the warrior. Now
Yeah,
you're more the killer, the warrior.
yeah.
Um, you're not
The
walking through the
Dragon
village.
Slayer.
Yeah,
That's
you're
right.
not walking through the burned out village, looking at all the carnage.
Right, right.
You got, like you said, you got the sword and you're out there slaying the dragons now.
Yeah,
I love it.
yeah.
Thanks for sharing your journey, Holly. This a tough. These are tough. For me, like as an interviewer, these are
Yeah.
hard because it's as a parent, it's hard to imagine what another parent goes through, and your courage to be here, right? I need you tomorrow. Tomorrow I need you.
I
And
love it.
I'm glad you're here. I love this shirt. This guy he's such a man, Marcel. He was such a powerful energy, and also courage. I mean, losing someone to suicide, also a different
Mm,
kind of tough,
yeah,
a
it's
different
all
kind of tough,
yeah,
but
it's all bad.
it's different bite of the same shit sandwich. That's for sure,
Yes,
though.
yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
you're both sharing a shit sandwich,
You're
just a different
absolutely.
side of it.
That's
It's
right,
a
and it
12-inch
tastes like
sub,
and and it tastes like shit, yeah.
and it tastes like, yeah, pretty much. And you can kind of still taste it, I think,
Oh, yeah,
forever.
forever. Yeah,
You'll forever a little bit.
yeah.
Um, Thanks again, Holly, for being a guest and for being so vulnerable. And I think, I think this will be a good listen for a lot of people. Good heart warmer.
Oh, well, thank you, Ken, very much.
Yeah. Like your headset. Everything looked good. You sounded great. We got through it. I'll see you in 30 seconds. Hang around. I'll see you on
Okay,
the other side.
okay.
Thanks everybody for listening and supporting mental health. Especially a big shout out to all everybody not watching but listening on different podcast platforms. Just give us a rating when when we finish, and drop down below and write some nice words, and give us some stars. And then most important, find some great way to share. Thanks again, Holly. Thanks everybody. See you in a minute.
Yeah, loose, baby.
But we're about to go and make this vessel with these great professionals at Public Glass. We're not part of the community, but we're from the outer family of glassblowing. Yeah, we're gonna go make a magical giant jar with optic lenses so that if you turn it, it changes all the time. So if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.